FSN Radio. It's all about what's next. Go to financialsurvivalnetwork.com and sign up for your free weekly newsletter. You'll also get 3 free reports. The Financial Survival Network. It's all about what's next.
Welcome. You are listening to the Financial Survival Network. I'm Kerry Lutz, and it's February 6, 2020. Well, if you had bought Tesla just a few short weeks ago, you probably wouldn't be listening to the show. You'd probably be planning your retirement. Well, is it too late to get into Tesla? Is the party over? And what about the coronavirus? Where is that heading? Economic trends. We have election madness in the United States. Just a couple short days ago in Iowa, the whole system melted down. Was that by accident or design? And we are here with our good friend Rob Kirby from Kirby Analytics. You find him at kirbyanalytics.com. I'm laughing, Rob, because that's my daughter's married name, Kirby, and it just flashed something across my mind. But in any event, hey, are all these things connected? Are they just happening in a vacuum, each thing? You know, once upon a time, Rob, you could count on the media to connect the dots. But now the global industrial media complex, they're all about disconnecting the dots. Anyway, if you got any questions, what do you think about the election madness? Do you think all these events are connected? Email us, kl@kerrylutz.com. So, Rob, great to have you back here. We're looking at all these insane events happening. I haven't looked at Tesla. The last time I looked at Tesla stock, it was up to about 700. Maybe it's going up to 1,000, right?
Well, I think it's 940 here this morning.
Oh, my goodness gracious. Well, we are doing this a day or so before. Actually, I'm looking at it 88869. So the Illuminati are involved in this move. It's obvious. What makes a stock like Tesla? And look, I love the car. I love the technology. It's still an unproven, untested company, whether it really can succeed in the future. But you have to give them credit. They're the first new car company post-World War II to ever go into mass production, which in and of itself is something you could say. It's interest rates, government subsidies. All of that is true. But yet they have done it where everyone else has failed. But does that make them $1,000 a share company here, Rob?
Oh, apparently it does. I mean, Kerry, when you think about it, a couple of weeks ago, one of the memes that was predominant in the financial landscape was that our financial system globally was teetering on failure, and we've had the development of this virus, which seems to be running rampant in China. The Chinese economy has been pushed off a cliff, and in response to that, we've seen the price of precious metals soar, and we've seen the stock market beating its chest and rallying like a bad thing, like they're not going to be issuing any more stock, and you have to buy it before the last share certificate's gone. And I mean, everything that's occurring in our capital markets, Kerry, in my view, is so fundamentally counterintuitive that I am at a loss for words as to why, how, or who or what is behind all of these counterintuitive moves. And to me, it reeks of interference. It reeks of and I should throw in for good measure to boot. I mean, today we had the Fed add 94 billion in short term. They call it liquidity.
Right.
You see, the Fed's been adding about 100 billion a day now for the last 4 or 5 months, but that's not called adding to their balance sheet. Okay, that's called temporary. Okay, and if they're still doing it 16 months from now, and instead of 100 billion, if they're putting 160 or 70 billion in on a short-term basis, then they'll still say that that's not balance sheet building. They'll just say that that's temporary. As long as they as long as these ads are done under the guise of repo, it's not considered an ad to the Fed's balance sheet.
Mm-hmm.
It's sort of like, Kerry, if I lend you $25 and you never pay it back, is it just a temporary loan, or is it really a bad debt?
Well, or if we're saying every day you are supposed to pay me back, I say, all right, as far as I'm concerned, you paid me back, but I'm loaning it back to you again. So every day is a new loan, even though the initial loan is never going to be paid back. But look, I mean, the banks all over the world, central banks are doing this. In China yesterday, I think it was either 167 billion they did or 170 something billion they just pumped into the banks because they were about to collapse.
But Kerry, the Fed does that every day.
Yeah, well, I think they all do.
The Fed does that. I mean, it's, yesterday, I saw the headline. When the Bank of China did that yesterday, there were headlines about it. But the Fed's doing that every day, and nobody bats an eye.
Yeah, it's another day at the office.
What people do is they rejoice and they buy the stock market and they celebrate. This is crazy. This is counterintuitive. This is fundamentally not what is supposed to happen when you have something that smells like, looks like, walks like, talks like financial Armageddon. Usually the first course of action is not to buy the stock market to record highs.
Yeah, it's called,
and it's usually not to sell precious metals into the ground.
Yeah, it's called whistling past the cemetery. That's what we used to call it. So, and then you see all these crazy things. Like, I think one thing I've learned from Martin Armstrong is in the scheme of things, everything is connected, right? Everything, it's like that butterfly flapping its wings and, causing a tsunami in Japan. It's in South America and it flaps its wings or creates a hurricane or whatever, El Nino, it's all connected, and all of our actions, all of our markets, all of us are connected somehow. And we just refuse to acknowledge it and say, oh, China's just a vacuum. The Fed, this is what the Fed does. That's their job. But it's not their job here, right? It's not their job to liquefy the banks daily, right?
Well, what they're doing is they're picking winners. I mean, effectively, what the central banking community is doing is they're deciding which businesses succeed and which ones fail. And that's like where I come from. That's called central planning.
Yeah, same here.
That's called communism. Okay, and that is a model that the former Soviet Union and North Korea and Eastern Germany and Cuba and Venezuela and anyone else who's ever practiced the art of communism has demonstrated to humanity in living color that central planning is a recipe for disaster and failure. And for people who say, look at our capitalist society today and tell me you really believe that, I say to them, what's being practiced in the West right now, and specifically what's being practiced in Canada and the United States, is more synonymous with communism or socialism in an extreme sense than it was to our capitalist roots. We've deviated away from our capitalist roots onto a socialist/communist bandwagon. And, amazingly, or perhaps not, the Russians and to an extent, the Chinese are practicing much more of our capitalist tendencies maybe than we do. The only thing that I would add is that these two regimes that I just prefaced, China and Russia, they still rule with an authoritarian hand. But I mean, that seems to me to be the direction that we're moving in the West with attacks on freedom of speech, First Amendment, Second Amendment rights are being I'm just going to say overwhelmed, and they're under siege. And to me, this is not a good thing.
No, for sure. And I think what you're referring to, when you think about it, the West and the birth of Western ideals and thought all revolved around the individual and furthering the individual being the, to be the best person you could be. And really, the authoritarian model is totally the opposite of that. It's really about you're a vassal of the state. You exist to further the state's goals. And that's what you do. That's why you're here. You have no other purpose for being. And, if we lose the West, that's what we're going to lose.
FSN Radio. It's all about what's next.
OSI No Resources is a Ross Beatty-backed gold exploration company in mining-friendly Namibia. OSI No's district-scale land package is situated near 2 producing gold mines, one of which OSI No's management team previously developed and sold to B2 Gold. OSI No's founders and management are experienced mining professionals who have already successfully developed and sold 2 companies in the past 7 years. OSI No has an excellent shareholder base with Ross Beatty owning 20%, insiders 5%, and Resource Capital Funds 8%. This is an exploration company with drills turning that you'll definitely want to pay attention to. OSI No trades in New York under the ticker OSIIF and in Toronto under the ticker OSI. To learn more, go to osinoresources.com. That's osinoresources.com.
The Financial Survival Network. It's all about what's next.
Yeah. And you know what, Kerry, I mentioned to you before we started recording, everybody should be thankful for what they've got because, life can be very fleeting. As I stated to you before we started recording, a year ago at this time, I was in hospital and I got ill very suddenly. And I was in critical care for 5 weeks. I was bedridden for 2 months. And my doctors, myself, people didn't give me very good odds to live. And then I ricocheted and I've rebounded. I've regained my health. I had lost use of my lungs and I had pneumonia-like symptoms. And but nobody knows what I had. And, I got through it and here I am. And, be thankful for what you've got because, I think there was a song that was written once upon a time. You don't know what you got till it's gone.
You don't know what you got till you lose it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And, we are blessed in this part of the world. And I'll tell you one thing that I learned through my ordeal: prayer works, and it does wonders. And where we find ourselves today, in a global sense, from a financial perspective, and from the perspective of the erosion of our rights and our liberties, we all need to give thanks for what we have. And vigilantly protect what we have, because it's important we do this, because how we conduct ourselves through these difficult times, that's our legacy, and that's how we're going to be remembered.
Agreed. Totally agree with you. And hey, we've got like anarchy here. Look what happened in Iowa the other day, right? The Iowa Caucus touted, much anticipated. Everybody gets a participation trophy because you don't know who won. And then once they come out with the results, nobody believes them anyway because everyone believes it was a fix, right?
Of course, Kerry. And what did they do? They called it a tie.
Yeah.
It's a 5-way tie.
Mm-hmm.
This is so symptomatic of what goes on in the Western world today. It's like it's like kids who compete in competitions, mm-hmm. whether it's sports or whether it's academic. Everybody gets a trophy, Kerry. Didn't you know?
Yes, I'm aware.
You can't declare a winner, because if you declare a winner, Kerry, you might upset people who didn't win.
Mm-hmm.
So instead, we declare everybody winners. Everyone gets a trophy, and it's all about making everybody feel good.
Very true.
And that's the world we're living in today. And that is not reality. You see,
No.
in reality, like I think from my own standpoint, like where I live, like I'm independent media. I eat what I kill. I spend 2 months in bed and I don't make money.
Right.
And it's like, imagine not going to work. If you work a 9 to 5 job, take 2 months off and spend it in bed. And if you don't have an understanding employer, ask yourself where you are.
Yeah. No, it's so true.
That's life. That's reality.
Yeah. Oh God, yeah. Hey, that's why I've kept my disability policy for 35 years, although thank God I've never needed it, because my fear is, Rob, that the day that I cancel it, that's going to be the day that I need it. And it's a ridiculous policy. It's way more than I need at this point in life, but I could not get it. And if I lose my voice tomorrow, even though I can do other things, I'll still be covered. But, it's
and you know what? And it's a very easy segue from that, Kerry, into why you want to own precious metal.
Yes.
Because precious metal, physical precious metal, is financial insurance. And even if we have a counterintuitive assault on the paper price of precious metal, it's still, in my view, not a great reason to hold a fire sale or back up the truck and dump out your metal.
Big mistake.
Unless, of course, you use it all to buy Tesla last week, and then you can retire this week.
Yes. Yeah. Well,
but I'd rather go into a casino and put all my money on red.
Yeah. You just know, you and I have seen this so many times here, Rob, and it's like Amazon. It's like Apple. All these companies have been pushed higher, right? They've been pushed higher for the boys. This is what it's about, right? Totally manipulated, and then the public gets onto the merry-go-round, right? And further amplifies the insane increase.
Yeah. Well, and the reason it happens, Kerry, is because capital has been mispriced through the bond market, through manipulations in the bond market, because interest rates have no business being where they are. We have negative real rates in our marketplace right now, as illustrated by the bond market. I mean, if you've got a 10-year bond rate at the 10-year U.S. government bond rate at 1.6, and even though their artificial proclamation of inflation being at 1.8 or 1.9%, still means you've got a negative real return. Using a fallacious measurement of inflation, you still got negative rates of 30 basis points. And if you want to measure inflation by other measures like shadowstats.com, John Williams, or the Chapwood Index, which says that inflation in the real world for people who actually engage in the real world is more like 8 to 10%. With a 10-year bond rate at 1.6, you've got negative real returns, of 6 to 650 basis points a year.
Yep.
And you see, that's not a great way to build wealth. That's called wealth destructive activity, if you're engaged in that activity. And what that does, Kerry, is it forces people down the risk curve and encourages people to take bigger risk, bigger bets, more dangerous bets, chasing yield. And that's what happens when you underprice or misprice the cost of capital.
Mm-hmm.
And that has been occurring and been going on in our society for a very long time. And this is why companies like Apple, Apple really, in 2019, Apple made no more money as a company than they did in 2012. yet their stock price is 5 times higher.
Yeah.
And people in the world, Kerry, don't believe that we're living in inflationary times because they've been told so many times that there is no inflation.
Yeah, it's the big lie.
I mean, the reason they can get away with this, officialdom gets away with this, is because they have the traditional measures of inflation, like precious metals, under lock and key. The prices are not allowed to appreciate. But to anyone who thinks there's no inflation, all I'm going to suggest to you, look at the price. Look at the prices being paid for fine art. Look at the prices being paid for collector cars.
Real estate.
Look at the prices being paid for real estate. But I mean, real estate to a point, there are checks and balances that can be used to hold real estate prices down, because all you have to do is instruct banks not to extend a lot of credit in that area. But if you look at, like, in the realm of the ultra rich, in the collector markets, in the fine art markets, absolute record prices being paid for everything.
Yep.
And
correct.
The reason it's being paid and the reason fine art prices can go up is because they're unbridled by an overarching
correct.
derivatives complex. There are no derivatives for fine art.
That's
so
right.
when we see auctions of rare fine art pieces or very valuable fine art pieces, and they go for 2 and 3 times the estimate, which is very commonplace in this day and age, the reason that they go for such high prices is because that's a place, it's telling you how much money there is in the system. It's telling you how debased the currency is.
Yep.
That people are willing to spend outrageously outlandish amounts to acquire something that is truly, truly rare and of value.
Yep.
This is the way metals used to behave until we had a precious metals derivatives complex where any amount of precious metal is sold in paper form on the COMEX Futures Exchange or on the London Bullion Market Association, where the amount being sold has there's no connection between the amount of paper ounces that are sold versus the amount of gold that comes out of the Earth's crust every year.
Yep. All of that is agreed, Ron. I mean, this is just going to make the eventual blow up that much greater, the conflagration. They've fought it off. They've kept it off this long, but how much longer is the question? Anyways, we got to wrap it up. Really appreciate you coming on. Any questions or comments for Ron or myself? What do you think about this? What do you think about these manipulated markets? Email us, kl@kerrylutz.com, Twitter feed @KerryLutz, Facebook page is Financial Survival Network, and our home site, financialsurvivalnetwork.com, where you should go there, sign up for a newsletter. Rob, always a pleasure. Can't thank you enough for coming on. Good health, and we're glad you made it.
Thanks a lot. My pleasure.
FSN Radio. It's all about what's next. Go to financialsurvivalnetwork.com and sign up for your free weekly newsletter. You'll also get 3 free reports. The Financial Survival Network. It's all about what's next.